Hello, young people. We are filming our video for lab number 2, contour lines. This should be a pretty quick video. Just want to give you the basic information you need to get started. Your contour line lab number 2, it'll begin with a little review from last week. So if you're not feeling confident with ratio scales and latitude and longitude, it's a good opportunity for you to get that figured out. So contour lines are all about, this is following up on our last lab. It was called topographic maps. Topographic maps show the shape of the land, and last week we basically learned how to use some of the really most basic tools of the map, the scale, the latitude, and the longitude. We learned to figure out where we are in the world when we're looking at a map. Now we're going to learn how to use the map. So here's a little cross section. We're going to imagine we're down at the ocean, and we're going to just walk directly away from the ocean, and we're going to walk up this hill. And as we walk up the hill, eventually we will be 10 vertical feet above the level of the water. And we get going further, and we're 20 vertical feet above the edge of the water, 30 vertical feet, 40 vertical feet, whatever. That is your elevation, your distance above sea level. If you were to draw a line straight up from the ocean and measure along that line and then square over wherever you are on the planet, however many feet above sea level, that is your elevation. And that is what topographic lines on a map show. They show elevation. And so if we realize that every topographic line is a line that is the same, anywhere on that line is the same distance above sea level, then we will recognize that topographic lines are basically level. So if I was standing on a topographic line on a map, and I walked and I followed the path that that line traces, I would never walk uphill or downhill. I would always be walking perfectly parallel with sea level. So how does that work? We'll envision a little bit more of this standing and walking business. So we've got a picture here. I drew you a picture here. Might take a minute to really figure out what's going on. It's a little sloppy, but you can figure it out. Up here we're in cross section. Down here we're in map view. So it's a picture of the same thing, side view and an overhead view. So if I'm this little hiker and I'm walking up the hill, up to the very top of the hill, and then I'm going to keep going down the other side of the hill, I'm going to cross a topographic line and another and another and another. I'll get to the top and then I'll come down and I'll cross back over those same topographic lines, right? So now here we are in map view. I'm going to walk straight. Eventually I'll cross that next topographic line and the next and the next. Hey, there's my little flag at the top, and then I'm going to go down the steep side of the hill. The thing I want to point out here is that this side of the hill has a more gentle slope, and my topographic lines in map view are further apart, which should make sense, right? If the lines are further apart, it means it is changing the elevation is changing slower as I walk up and over the hill. And then on this side, the lines are closer together just because it's steeper. So I'm going to come down faster, and I will cross over those topographic lines sooner. That's pretty much all there is to it. A couple of basic points. Topographic lines can never cross on a map. They just can't, because they are lines of equal elevation. So the vertical distance between two topographic lines is always the same. Depending on the scale of your map, your topographic lines might be 10 feet apart, or 100 feet apart, or 20 feet apart. It all depends on the scale of your map. So here's a little cheat sheet of some vocab. Topography is just the shape of the surface of the earth. Just the shape of it. Topographic lines are they're lines on a map that show points of equal elevation. And then this point here, this is really key. Contour interval. It is the vertical distance between topographic lines. So on our very first diagram here, where we started at the ocean and we started walking up the hill, our contour interval is 10 feet, because there's 10 feet between each of these lines. Now on a map, on a topographic map, usually you will see two types of topographic lines. There will be a heavy, dark line, and there will be thinner, lighter lines. And usually the heavy, dark line is the only one that's actually labeled. And so it might look something like this. You'll have a heavy, dark line that says 500. That would mean 500 feet above sea level. And then you'll have 1, 2, 3, 4 light lines, and then a heavy dark line that says 600. Your map would get pretty cluttered if you tried to put an elevation on every single topographic line. So they only label the heavy lines. Now, if I'm over here and I want to know what the elevation at one of these spots is, I might have to trace that line. I might have to follow that line over to where the label actually is, because I might not be able to tell right away. If I find a spot and it's right on this heavy line, but I don't know what the elevation is, I gotta follow that line over until I find a number. It says, oh, it's 500. Okay. The last couple things to point out. So the contour interval here would be 100 feet, right? Between our dark lines, 500 feet, 600 feet, and then there's these 4 lines in between. Well, if that's 500 and that's 600, then it's 500, 520, 540, 560, 580, 600. So our light colored lines that don't get labels, those are 20 feet apart. Last couple little points. If I have a point on a map that is, say, between the 500 line and the 520 line, what elevation would it be? I don't know. There's no way to tell. The map doesn't have enough information to give me that elevation. But I know two things. If I have a point on this map that's between 500 and 520, I know that it is at least 501 feet, and I know that it's less than 519 feet, right? Because if it was 500, it would be right on this line, and if it was 520, it would be right on that line. I think that's all you need to get yourself started on lab number 2. Quick, easy. You want to just look at the lines, pay attention to if you have a line and you're trying to pick out an elevation for a place, follow that line, figure out what the follow the line, figure out what the elevation of that line is, but make sure you're paying attention to what direction is uphill and what direction is downhill. I think that'll be enough for you. We're just working with one topographic map. It's a pretty easy lab this week, but we need to get comfortable with the way maps work. And this is a really, really big deal. So, best of luck. I hope you get started early and get finished early. And of course, reach out if you have any questions. Good luck.